Hello race fans, a big welcome back to the channel. It is Jake Sanderson aka Snowman Cycling, and I am back once again with another race recap video for you. And this week I think you are really going to enjoy this one, especially if you are a fan of me suffering, because this week there's no winning, there's no fighting for the podium spot. I will tell you right now, there is just pain, misery, death and destruction as I fight it out with the big boys in A, and we're about to see firsthand just how hard it can be in ACAT. And this ain't going to be no fast, flat, furious race across Fuego Flats where I'll be able to sit in the blob and draft effectively. No. Unfortunately for me, this is going to be 2 laps of Ocean Lava Cliffside Loop where we've got totaling 38 kilometers, where we're going to have to do that ocean cliffside climb not once but twice. So there's going to be nowhere to hide, nowhere to sit in the draft. It's going to be mano a mano. How long can I hold the wheel of the big boys? And as we're about to hit the 10-minute mark of this race, the climb is going to be at just before the 10-kilometer marker. So this is a bit of a calm before the storm situation. It feels quite easy at this point, and I know that that is lulling me into a false sense of security, but I need not fear, because the first climb of the Ocean Lava Cliffside Loop is here. And as we're starting to approach this climb, I can feel the pace in this group is already ratcheting up to the point where I am drifting to the back of the group. Bad positioning from me there. I put myself into a spot that I did not need to be in, and here you see I'm having to close those gaps to make sure that I get onto the back of the group, and we're doing big numbers. The A guys do not mess around. We're having to do over 500 watts here and having to do big bursts just to move up the group and not get dropped. So the guys on the front are really drilling it here. Thank God this is only a short climb, because I know that I'm not going to be able to hold above 300 watts for too long on this climb, and it's just going to be about moving up the group as these gaps start to open to make sure that I'm doing myself as much of a favor as I can. But this is just sheer chaos, sheer carnage. I've never done a climb that was quite so hard in such a quite short space of time. These guys are not messing around. I have to do a 650 watt burst there to close the gap and come around. And trust me, when you're at the top of a climb like this, you do not want to be doing numbers like that when you've got further to go. So as this climb levels off, that's actually the worst possible thing for me at this point, because as a lighter rider, I could have done with the steeper gradient to help me bridge across to this group. But you can see there, as soon as that wheel opens up and you're out of the draft, it's basically game over. I'm almost already dead at this point. I have to do a big burst of just about 500 watts and then try and keep it above 6 for as long as I can to close onto the wheel of these guys, but it is absolutely cooking me, and I know I'm not going to be able to hold this for too much longer, as we are unfortunately stuck in no man's land, the worst possible place to be between two groups. And I have a decision to make here. Can I try and get onto the group ahead, or should I wait for the group behind? And there it is, folks. That is the moment where I crack. I let the wheel go. I cannot follow anymore. I have been dropped. Officially dropped, cooked by this group. And I had a look at my power then, because I couldn't quite believe that I was doing the power I was doing and still getting dropped. That was 5.2 watts per kilo for 5 minutes, and I still got dropped like a stone. At this point, that was my best ever 5-minute power in any race, and that just shows you how hard these guys were really drilling it on the front. The guys at the front of the race were doing 6 watts per kilo for 5 minutes there, and even on a good day, that is out of my league. So I elect to wait up a little bit and wait for the group behind to try and jump onto them, so I can use them to get a little bit of draft, and maybe we can work together and have a chance at the bottom of this climb of closing it on to the front group. Usually I would be of the opinion that if a sub-group further back from the main peloton got dropped, they would have no chance of working together and getting back to the main group. But in this instance, there's actually a GC league going on within this race. So there is an incentive for us riders to work together and try and keep that gap to the front group as low as it possibly can be, which means this dynamic may actually work, or may give us a chance at trying to pull back a little bit of time on that front group if we can stick together on the descent and then start working efficiently. And that's why you can see the desperation in my eyes, and you can see that for once, look at this, YouTube, I come to the front of the group and I start pulling because I am desperate to try and get back to the front of that group. So there you go. It does happen sometimes. It's not very often, but I will come to the front of the group and I will start trying to help pace if the situation calls for it. And whilst we're talking about what the situation calls for, I'd just like to take a minute to say massive thank you to all our recent and old subscribers and viewers. Your support is the only reason this channel is still going. And to give you all an update on what I mentioned in my last couple of videos, I am on what feels like a never-ending quest to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube to allow me to access a load of YouTube features that are currently locked to small content creators like me. With your help in the last couple of months, we've grown massively, but we're still not quite there yet. So I really need your help. If you're watching these videos, if you like them, please give me a subscribe. Help us get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. And as soon as we get there, the sooner I'll shut up about it. So let's just hurry up. Okay, without further ado, let's get back to the main event. As we come back across the bridge descent now, our group of 8 is trying our best to work together and pull back some of that time. But when I look at the leaderboard on the right hand side, unfortunately I can see that gap went from 6 seconds at the very top of the climb to now 15 seconds. It's getting bigger and bigger with every passing minute. And unfortunately for us, there's no amount of cohesive working together as a team that's going to pull that back. And I think riders start to realise that as we come out the tunnel, as the attacks start right here. And I realise that if I want to stick in this group, I'm going to have to try and go with them. I'm very, very tired at this point. I really wish we weren't doing 400 watts plus on this little ramp. But unfortunately, that's not how the A guys roll. They're going to put you under pressure. They're going to attack you when you don't want to be attacked, because that's what the best racers do. So I elect to come to the front of this group, do a little bit of pacing for this team. I don't want this guy, Archer, to get away on the front of this group. And I'm prepared to do my little bit of pulling if it means that everybody else pulls as well. So bit of a top tip for you here. If you do the first pull, that encourages everybody else to pull. So pull, and don't pull particularly hard, and don't pull for particularly long, and then flick them the elbow, roll to the back of the group. That will encourage the other riders in your group to do a little bit of work with you. And then on the rises like this, like me, you can come to the front of the group and put in a little bit of power. Makes it look like you're working, whereas actually you're just doing the rises like you would usually do them. So sneaky way to convince people to work together there. But you can see that the pace isn't particularly easy, as this group of 8 has now gone down to a group of 4. We dropped 3 riders off the front of the group. That rider who made a break actually managed to bridge across to the front group. So fair play to him. I don't think I had enough energy in the tank to be able to do anything even remotely close to that. And you may be watching this thinking, Jake, you could have done more to go across with him. Jake, you could have done more to pull him back, work with the group. I am on the limit here, and everything I'm doing is pretty much at that limit. So I'm having to make these micro decisions to try and save tiny bits of energy here and there where you can. And that's going to be super important, especially as we reach this climb for the second time, because the power's not coming down. I thought there's only a few of us. This is going to be easier than when there was a big group. I'll tell you right now, I did have higher 5-minute power on this version of the climb than I did the first time we did it with the big group. That just tells you how hard this was. 5.2 watts per kilo for 5 minutes up here. And all I was trying to do was not let the riders in my group get away. So I'm not trying to pace this group. I'm not trying to drop anybody. I said to myself, all I want to do is not let either of these 2 riders get away. And these 2 riders are not letting me have it easy. They're really trying to drill it. They're really trying to drop me here. I can only assume that these guys haven't got a particularly good sprint, and they're thinking this is their last chance to get rid of anybody extra from this group before we get to the finish in the final few K. I can't say I blame them, but I really wish they hadn't done it. It absolutely sucked. Fast forwarding through this really doesn't do it justice, but I was absolutely on the limit. I am suffering. I cannot work. I can barely hold the wheel. Well, at least that's what I want them to think. If you look at my heart rate, it's not as high as it could be. The snowman hasn't quite melted yet, and that's because I've got one last card to play, and that is going to be to launch it here, coming out of the tunnel with 1.5k to go, deploy the power up and leave them both for absolute dead. Try and get a few seconds on them in the GC stand-in. So here we go, 500 watts. This is it. I'm launching my attack to try and carry it to the finish, and I managed to get a little bit of separation. I am all in here, and this is it. This is the moment where I'm going to power away from these guys and leave them for absolute dead. However, as I sit down, my earphones come out, and obviously this is not a very aero move. I must have lost too much aero there, because as I sit down, that gap comes back down extremely demoralizingly to under 10 meters as those guys basically just snap straight back onto my wheel. So that was my finishing attack, and those guys jumped onto my wheel like I barely turned the pedal. So I didn't find that very funny at the time, but the joke is well and truly on them, because I'm a sprinter and they needed to get rid of me on the climb and they didn't. So this is my chance to go for it again, even though I've just used all my energy. If you're a sprinter, you've always got one sprint left in the bag, haven't you? So this is it. I unleash mine. And I actually think that the guy behind me, Heijin, did really well. He did a huge sprint, but he just didn't expect me to go when I went, I think. So caught him napping there, managed to get a few seconds on the guys around me, finishing in 12th place overall out of 30 riders. As you can see there, not particularly happy with the outcome. 3.9 watt per kilo average for 56 minutes as the average power, but the normalized power was 30 watts higher at 263 watts, which is 4.2 watts per kilo for 56 minutes. So it felt more like that. So I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. A little bit different, a lot more pain and suffering than usual. I know that's what you guys want to see. Nobody wants to see the wins. You just want to see me hurting. Thanks again for watching. There's Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links in the description below. Like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. So I hope to catch you on the next one. And remember, most importantly, race fast, ride hard, and that you are appreciated.